Let's dissect Tyrese Haliburton's high shot games and low shot games. What actually leads to the differences in those nights? Plus, a change in plans for the Pacers at center and a deep dive, sorta, into them not doing anything at the deadline. We'll get to all that today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Tuesday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, much to get into. 2 minutes before this recording, news came out the Pacers are changing plans with their center signing. No Alex Len. Yes, Jahlil Okafor. So that gets in here in real time. But Will Furr joins us to talk about much more than that. Tyrese Haliburton. He had 3 shots against Portland. What is the difference between his high and low shot games? What does it say about the Pacers? How can he up that level a little bit? Plus, a deep dive into that change of heart at center for the Pacers in the Jalil Okafor 10-day edition. And at the end, a discussion of the Pacers trade deadline and standing pat. Was it the right move? What will we have done differently? We get into all that with Will Furr today. Let's just jump right in. The Pacers are back tonight. Who knows who their third center will be? Who knows what version of Tyrese Haliburton they will get? And that is the things we're going to talk about today with Will Furr, a man who did not get blown out in the Super Bowl. Will, how are you?
I am almost certainly doing better than any individual Kansas City Chief. Although money is nice, so say what you will.
Would you stand in there and block Jalen Carter for a game at your current size for the money?
If they were going to pay me millions of dollars, I'd go to that hospital trip. I figured that would balance out.
I would get run over very often by Jalen Carter. Lots I want to get into with Will today. We are recording this at a very interesting time of the day where it turns out that maybe Alex Len is not coming to the Pacers and Jahlil Okafor is. We'll see. If it feels like I'm very floaty, it's because I'm trying to figure that out as we go. But something I wanted to talk to Will about that we both have come with numbers and research for is Tyrese Haliburton, who specifically just had a road trip where he mostly took the amount of shots he typically does, in the 15, 17, 13 range. He also had a game where he took 3, his fewest as a Pacer. And there is much made about the team's record when he does certain things and doesn't do certain things and why he does or doesn't do certain things and everybody assuming things about him or trying to guess things about his psyche. And that's all fine and good. We might do that right here. But I want to ask you first, Will, what is to you the reason that these swaths in his game exist where he can have monster nights and score a bunch and nights where he shoots sub 10 times and doesn't look as effective? And I have my own theories that I will get into. I'll probably have to monologue for like 3 to 5 minutes to go through all my numbers. But what do you think? What do you make of this? And why is this a thing the Pacers have to deal with?
I'm going to look at this question in 2 ways. So I'm going to look at it as what's going on recently, but also the overall, why does he do this? Because this has been a part of his career since he came to the Pacers. At least I can't say I was an avid Kings fan. On the whole, I think that physicality really throws him off.
Agreed.
And I'm not going to go as far as to say that the NBA has an inconsistent whistle when it comes to perimeter defense.
You can say
it. They have had some focuses over the past year that change depending on what they feel may or may not be best for the game. And I think right now it's not in a great place for Ty. They're letting him play, as Quinn loves to say. Oh, they're letting him play. Letting him play, partner. And that's not great for Ty. He's very thin, obviously, and I have no doubt he's put on weight. He's put on muscle, and I'm sure he's in the gym pumping iron, doing all the things. This is not about work ethic. He's just a very thin dude, and he can get knocked off his path. They can control him on defense if he's not getting those kind of backcourt call or those perimeter calls. I think that's the overall thing that's really going on is he can be knocked off what he wants, and his handle isn't quite good enough, as LaMelo Ball has shown us multiple times in the most painful of ways, to make up for that problem.
Okay, Will, how long can I talk before I bore you?
Go for it.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to say a stat that's true and then dissect it, and then say another stat that's true and then dissect it, and we'll really get to the bottom of this. The reason I went through the exercise that I'm about to go through on this podcast with Will and with all of you listening is that when they just played the Blazers, Toumani Camara was on him, who fits your bill. Good physical defender, right? Okay, knocking him off his path, changing the game. It makes sense in a game like that. Sometimes, hey, let's play through Andrew Nembhard, who had 17 points on 10 shots that night and is being guarded by Anthony Simons. If Nembhard can play well against his matchup, Tyrese Haliburton's going to do that. Now, most stars don't do that. They don't defer to someone else who's not as good as them offensively. And so what I said after that game was Tyrese Haliburton's very much a feel player. If he feels out a game in a matchup in a situation for his team where he feels like someone else should do something for better or for worse sometimes, that other player is going to thrive. So what I wanted to do was go through two things. One thing is when he shoots 16 or more times, people love this stat. When the Pacers shoot, or Tyrese Haliburton shoots 16 or more times in a game, they're 13-3, right? I'm sure you had this ready to go because you're smirking at me, right? And that is true. That's good. And I think the core of that is he's great. I made the case 2 summers ago, before his first All-Star season, he should shoot more because he self-creating his own shots is very often more efficient than something else the Pacers can do. So let's run through those 16 games and see how or why Tyrese Haliburton got 16 shots. For example, the first time it happened was against the New Orleans Pelicans without Herb Jones or DeJounte Murray. So a backcourt of CJ McCollum, Elfrid Payton, and Javonte Green. Yeah, he better be able to get up shots against that group.
Was that the Elfrid Payton triple-double game?
That was the Elfrid Payton triple-double game. Another game it happened. They win coming out of the NBA Cup game against the Sixers with a backcourt of Maxey, Paul George, and Kelly Oubre. And Paul George was guarding Ben Mathurin. So he had a nice matchup that night. He had a big game against the Heat in shot attempts against a Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and no effort Jimmy Butler backcourt. He had a game against the Celtics where he took a lot of shots. They have good defenders, right? He had 17 points on 19 shots that night. Siakam carried them in overtime. He shot a lot, didn't even go that well. The other time they played the Celtics was on December 29th, no Drew Holiday, but I will give Tyrese Haliburton a lot of credit. He played a legitimately great game that day, and they won. Phoenix with Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Ryan Dunn. Ooh, Ryan Dunn's pretty good. I'll give Tyrese Haliburton credit. He played good in this game. However, his most common defender by time was Grayson Allen in that game. The Pistons. He took a lot of shots that game, 15 points on 18 shots. Not as good as the shot total suggests. The Sixers in their home opening loss, 22 points on 18 shots. They lost that game. That's the first loss I've said so far. The Knicks, probably his best game of the season. He totally cooked those guys in the Pacers' best home win at the time when he had 35 points. The Raptors, they lost that game. He had 16 points on 18 shots. The Spurs with Chris Paul, Stephon Castle and co. Best 3 minutes of his career in that game. Legitimately great in that one. Dallas with Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and Klay Thompson. And the Toronto Raptors, they lost this game. He was great with 30 points with RJ Barrett, Jacoby Walter, and Ochai Agbaji. It seems very clear in all those games that he has a matchup that A, is like what you said, not physical, and B, lets him do well at not the expense of others. Like, I do think there's a matchup element to this. On one hand, it's good that he can do that. On the other hand, a lot of stars aren't matchup dependent, right? So there's a lot to that to say, yes, they're very good when he shoots a lot. There's another thing to say, he shoots a lot because he's allowed to do so.
If I can just add to this, if Toumani Camara is all it takes for Haliburton to have a bad game,
he's great. He's a great player. He's a great player.
Kamara's fine.
Great player. I'm shutting this one down from you. Toumani Camara is very good. Can I keep going? Can I go the opposite direction with this argument? Great. So the flip side of this is they have 7 games this season where he's taken less than 10 shots. They're 2-5 in those games. More ammo for the Tyrese Haliburton Shoot More Club. And again, I do think they're right, mostly. I've made that case before. However, let's talk about those 7 games. One of them is the one you just said. Toumani Camara held up to 3. Nembhard was great on 17 points on 10 shots. The Pacers as a team sucked that night. They scored 89 points. Tyrese Haliburton was not good. The next one, they won. He took less than 10 shots because he got hurt. That was the game in Cleveland. Everybody gives that a pass, whatever. You got hurt, you left the game. Okay, OKC, the most critical I think the public has been of Andrew Nembhard after a specific game. They lost in crunch time. Shea went crazy. After the game, he and the team talked about Lou Dort shutting him down. The Thunder have the best defense in the NBA. You know who had a good matchup that night? Andrew Nembhard and Pascal Siakam, who both had over 20 points in that game. Houston Rockets. This one's a little bit of a head scratcher. Quentin Jackson had 24. I'm going to say that again. That's a real game that happened. Quentin Jackson scored 24 points. Pascal Siakam had 21. Tyrese Haliburton's 4 of his top 5 defenders that night were Dylan Brooks, Jabari Smith Jr., Tari Eason, and Ben Thompson. However, his most common defender was Fred VanVleet. That one makes you go, huh?
But Fred is physical.
Fred is physical.
He's short.
The New Orleans game that they won or that they lost. He was 2 for 8, but had 11 points and 11 assists. Mathurin had 19. Siakam had 16. Ben Shepherd had 20. The team shot over 40% from deep. He moved the ball well. He scored like crap. They lost. They should have won. The Knicks, their second game of the season. What the heck happened that night? They went 5 for 30 from deep. Everybody sucked. All of them. Every Pacers player sucked that night. And then in Phoenix, he had 13 on 9 shots. That's not even bad. And Pascal Siakam frickin' carried them out of there with the win. So I could even argue that not all of those are terrible games. Their record is not good in them. The only thing that's interesting about this, and what stands to both of our arguments, is only 3 teams overlap those 2 groups. The Suns, he had a good and bad game against in terms of the number of shots. Good and bad game is not a number of shots thing. The Knicks and the Pelicans. And the Pelicans had different players available. So I think you're right. There's a physicality element to this. I think he's right that there's a feel element if he feels like his teammates can do something else. There's so many layers to this that are very confusing. I think that what I would say is, yes, he needs to, in any matchup, be able to get off more shots. However, I think you're right that if there's a physicality element, and I think there's also a rest of team matchup and feel element, and he always is slower starting, like he gets more of his shots in the second half to feel that stuff out, to him wanting to get the right matchups involved in a way that isn't always the best for the team, but sometimes is.
Do you realize that Nembhard Haliburton is going to be the new Turner Sabonis? In that matchups are always getting mixed up, and Haliburton is inevitably getting the worst matchup of the 2, and because they're the same position, it doesn't matter. Oh, I hate it. I hate it.
What do you think of all that, though? Do you think I'm onto something? Am I rambling about too many things?
I absolutely think you're onto something, and I would add too that there was was it a hamstring tweak or a groin? I don't remember which.
Groin. That's right. That is also relevant.
Yeah, in I think the first half of the first Cleveland game, and when I went and kind of mapped out his numbers, he's taking 1 less shot since then. He's taking 1 less free throw since then. He's averaging 3 less points, 2 less assists. Interestingly, he's shooting better, but less aggressive since then. I think you're on the money. I think it's a combination of things. And I definitely think there's a lot of merit to the feel and to kind of the same thing that LeBron got criticism for when he was baby LeBron. And
Are you comparing these players, Will?
I am.
No one can see me smiling huge. The obvious sarcasm in my face. Only the viewers can see, not the listeners. Continue.
But he always got criticism when he was younger for, you are this good, you are this skilled, you are this talented. Why are you passing to Mo Williams? And
right.
I think Haliburton's kind of there. Obviously, different caliber player. Haliburton's not going to wind up as the greatest player in NBA history, if I had to guess. But same kind of criticism, and I think it's because they have the same offensive mindset.
I do think there's something to that with the cerebral team aspect part of it, and it's for better or worse at times. And Tyrese has said this before, which is why it's so interesting to me to see him fight through it every game. And there are games where legitimately at the end you go, man, he took 8 shots and they lost by 4 and they couldn't get it going in crunch time. If only he could have. Like if he started trying to get himself going earlier, he could have figured out where those spots were. And there are other games where just someone else, mostly Siakam, sometimes Mathurin, sometimes Nembhard, sometimes Turner, just steady diet, jumper. They're wide open. Haliburton got him going, and then they win. It's just, I think Siakam changed his dynamic a little bit, but I don't know that he'll ever be like he should take 17, 18, 19, 20 shots every kind of game kind of player. Maybe, but this is the lowest per game shot total he's had in a full season with the Pacers. But I do find this argument to be way too reductive when it's just like, he should shoot more. Well, by God, well, that's crazy. He should go out there against OG Anunoby and just chuck it up, right? Like, and everyone says, oh, the best stars can beat them. Okay, well, I think we figured out that he's not that. I mean, he's not as bad as some people say, but he's not the guy who could just beat anybody and score 1 billion points every time. And then people say he signed a max contract. Yeah, he signed the cheapest max possible for him. It's not the same max as everybody else.
Max.
It's a fun max. Can we stop? Yeah. Can we stop using straw man arguments? Some bad stuff. So annoying. It's so annoying. Everybody, short little break to talk about OpenPhone. Running a small business means you're wearing a lot of hats. Your personal phone becomes your business phone, and before you know it, you're juggling customer calls day and night. As your team grows, it becomes impossible to manage everything with just your personal number. That is where OpenPhone comes in. It's the #1 business phone system designed to help your work and personal life separate. For just $15 a month, the cost of a few coffees, you get complete transparency and visibility into everything happening with your business phone number. OpenPhone works through an app on your phone, computer, and generates with tools like HubSpot and hundreds of others. It uses AI-powered call transcripts and summaries, so you'll have a rundown of your calls and action items the second you hang up. And if you miss a call, no problem. Automated messages are sent directly to your customer, ensuring you never miss an opportunity to engage. Right now, OpenPhone is offering 20% off your first 6 months. Woo! When you go to openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA for 20% off 6 months. OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. Well, I just got text messages, so we can talk about this stuff. We're going to pivot very hard. Change of plans. Alex Len, maybe not, unless something else is happening. I can confirm through a couple people that the Pacers will be signing Jahlil Okafor to a 10-day deal as their third center. Interesting. I did write a long story about him and his fight to get back to the NBA, where he has not been for 4 years. Had an Achilles tear in the middle, went overseas, played for 2 G League clubs. It's a 10-day. I'll get into the nuances of that. Do you have any opinion of Jahlil Okafor or what he is at this stage of his career?
Do you know, and you might not, but do you know if the Achilles tear made him more mobile on defense?
Yeah, he's the first player ever who actually got faster after tearing his Achilles.
I don't even think he's probably better than Moses Brown. I don't understand the move. I'm not a big fan of Alex Len, but I'd take Alex Len over Ja, especially stylistically. You know, Ja was the death of the post-up center, the last of that breed before guys started figuring out that wasn't where the NBA was going. It's a really, really weird fit, unless they just want like a rebounder.
I asked him that to his face. I said, what do you think of the fact that you got to the NBA and then immediately it transformed and your skill set was like the least desired thing? I don't know if I posted that full interview anywhere, but I did write a full story on it. But like, that's been a part of what he is. So I will give him this. He is certainly trying to be a modern big. He does shoot multiple threes a game with the Mad Ants. His passing is better. His very first basket for them, catches on the perimeter, jab step left, 2 dribbles right, turn around, put a guy under the basket, little hook shot. I was like, oh, slithery. Who's this? Who's this Jahlil Okafor, right? He is not the same player that he was back when everybody would think of Jahlil Okafor. I don't even know what you want to say.
Plotter.
The Sixers. Yeah, the Sixers guy who's just, catch within 5 to 10 feet. It's super weird. He's not that player anymore, but that is still certainly where he's at his best, is around the basket. Like, a lot of his points are dunks, which is good. Dunking is good. It still counts. But he has, like, his last NBA action was preseason in 2021-22, right? So this was a while ago. For the season with the Mad Ants, it's taking me forever to scroll because Real GM is very buggy. He is averaging right now, he's playing 31 minutes a game, 18.6 points, shooting 66% from the field, taking over a 3 per game, but only making 28% of them. 80% at the foul line, 9.1 boards. This is the standout number to me. 3.1 assists. Like, he does have a little more touch with the passing. He does try to do stuff on the perimeter. He's more mobile than he was back in the days that we're talking about in Philly, but he is still certainly more ground-bound interior big man who you're going to need to try to play through that way. I'll say this and then let you talk more about what you think of this. 10-day right now, let's say this today I'm talking is Monday. If they sign it on Tuesday, people will go, well, the All-Star break's coming up. Yeah, they have a thing in place for this. So if your 10-day doesn't span 3 games, the contract spans 3 games. So he would play, in theory, he'd be active on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then again, they play, I think, Memphis in their first game out of the break. He would still be under contract through that game too. So it would be more air quotes than 10 days, but it would be a 10-day deal to that extent.
That's a fun little loophole. If you can get a guy in a 10-day that you actually want to bring in.
They don't want to make it so right now no one wants to sign a 10-day just because of this built-in break that they have. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it makes sense. That's just a fun little if there's a guy that you want to get for the season, that's a way to save a little money, a little salary cap. Can't say that word on here. Little salary cap fun. What do I think of it? It's 10-day. It doesn't matter. They could have signed a Mecca Okafor.
Does it signal anything about Myles to you? I mean, I saw him at practice Monday. He looked like he went through stuff. He's questionable for Tuesday. I mean, I would hope he'd be able to go, and this is just for depth, I guess. But
did you see him stand up and run down the court?
I saw him run around the perimeter and shoot a little bit.
I mean, when he got hit. Sorry.
Oh, I saw him at the bench almost fall down. Yes.
Yeah. I think that I would anticipate that he'll probably come back after the All-Star game. And that is based on no reporting, no inside knowledge, no sources or contacts. Just having rooted for this team for a long time and how cautiously they like to play things. And he was wobbly. He almost went down. That was not like, oh, I got my bell rung a little bit. Tee-hee.
Never great when that happens. Yes, certainly. So we'll wait a little longer to see what is going on here. I'm going to guess. Let me say this again. I'm going to guess that Alex Len changed court. He's cleared waivers at 7:30. He could sign with the Pacers right this second if he wanted. I would imagine that a certain rescinded trade involving a center on a team that is now going to have to start Jackson Hayes may or may not be involved in Alex Len's change of heart, where he could potentially be a backup or starter on a good team immediately.
And it would be a very short move for him.
Very short move. Stay on the West Coast. I highly doubt even reported to Washington. I will say once again that these are guesses, but that is the most logical thing. When something huge changes in the NBA, other people change their decisions. And so the Pacers probably had to. In this case, it is also possible they waived someone else to do this. I'm going to put that at about a 0.00005% chance.
I don't know. They love giving James Johnson 3 contracts a season.
Hey, no slander allowed.
Oh, not at all. He's critical to this team in ways that I can't even understand.
They love him, man. They absolutely love him.
If you ask 30 NBA GMs how they would feel about paying a person who can play important minutes under no circumstance and has a 0% chance of improving, I feel like about 25 of them are going to thanks, but no thanks.
Hater alert. My Lord.
Oh, I love James Johnson. You'll notice they signed him last year the day after Milwaukee. The day after Giannis and Bobby
that had been in the works for a while, remember? That was just a coincidence.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Okay, last thing I want to get your thoughts on that I haven't really said with anyone else. I've just talked about it myself. They didn't do anything besides trade James Wiseman last week. There was some buzz about some guys that was by credible reporters and some that was not. Do you think standing pat was the right choice? Or would you have been more aggressive in either selling away some money now to get ahead of things or trying to upgrade right this second?
I know, obviously, there was some buzz about Obi that is looking more and more like a Bruce Brown kind of, we're going to pay you because we can and because we like you, we want you to have the money, but you're on the trade block starting the moment you put ink to paper. But we had a lot of discussion about this in our group Discord, our basketball Discord, and really broke down. I want to tell you the names of centers who make around the same money as Turner when everybody was talking Myles Turner trade, and I know you were never even 1% on the Myles Turner trade bandwagon. But if we look like Nick Claxton, okay, Vooch, Jared Allen would be cool, but they're not trading him. Pirtle, Nurkic, Zubats, which they're not going to trade. We could have Zach Collins, I'm sure. The Pacers could have Zach Collins. The only partner that we found that made any sense at all was something like 3-teamy with Naz Reid.
Yeah.
He kind of makes sense, but obviously on the defensive end, he's listed at like 6'9". That's not great for your rim protection. So without knowing what was out there, I think this was probably the right move. I would have hated just about any Turner trade because there's just no way that makes sense for them to trade him and get him back in the trade. And that's what they needed. So
can they trade Myles Turner for Myles Turner with 2 more years on his contract? Was that out there?
Exactly. That's what they needed.
What draft pick would they have given up to actually legally do that? That would have been pretty funny.
The next CBA.
That'd be funny. A guy you can't legally extend, you can toss a draft pick into like some pool. I'm not even gonna bother. Yeah, I agreed with that. The Turner stuff made no sense to me, to just about anybody I talked to in the league, basically. I mean, everybody got why. Like, if they would have done it, they would have done it. But no one thought it made any sense for them to actually consider that as their line of thinking. Obi was, the name that hit a lot of reports. And that was, to me, financially motivated. I mean, I don't think he's on a bad contract on the Pacers. But on teams that don't play like the Pacers, it might look a little worse. And so not everybody, I would say a few people, a small percentage, like less than a quarter in the league I talked to about the trade market, when they would talk about Obi, would talk about getting off of his contract. And I never thought his contract was like that bad. I don't think of it as that bad. So if I'm trading Obi for negative value, I'm never doing that as the Pacers.
No,
it's not worth it. If he's money in a trade to get somebody great, yeah, duh. But like a lot of players, you'd think about differently if that's what their money's being used for, as aggregation. So he's a tougher one. Like if he's just neutral salary, then what's the point of that, right? Why are you doing that as the Pacers, to get back different salary? And probably not. And like that doesn't make sense. And Ben Mathurin is fascinating because even if you're one of those people, like I had Nate Duncan on here, and he was very clearly get ahead of the Mathurin stuff. He's not as high as him and everybody else. Even if you are that person, I would still want to know as much information as possible about his fit with this team in the starting 5 in the postseason before I commit to him being a casualty of some kind, right? Like I would not want to go too early just in case. Like he missed half of his, not half, but a good chunk of his second season. Like he's had to adapt his game significantly. Like there's no way I'm getting off of someone with that much potential that early. He's having a lot of career numbers efficiency wise this year and has improved in a lot of other important areas. Like the only way they made sense for anybody is if they got like blown over in value compared to what the expectation was for them. And I don't think that was going to happen at this juncture. And everything makes more sense for the Pacers to happen when they have, for lots of these guys, next season, in the summer, even whatever, as much information as possible about their salary structure, about how good the season goes, all sorts of stuff. And so I thought it made the most sense for them to stand pat, besides trying to clear a little bit of money, which they did, which is why I predicted Wiseman as the most likely candidate. But some people did say, "Oh, they should have got better. They're good this year. They could go for it." And like I get that. You always want to be as good as possible, but it's hard to find with that. Like, what are you trading away to upgrade? Jarace and Ben are your assets to trade away. And if you want to say first round picks, that's great, but they can only trade away 2 right now, 2028 and 2030, right? They can't do 27. So they could do 29 and 31. They could do swaps, all that. But like next year, that package goes up way more because the Stepien will loosen a lot. So there's a lot of very nerdy and a lot of very not nerdy reasons to say that I think standing pat was the right move. And I get why some people said they should have done this or that, but I was curious about other people's thoughts because it just didn't feel like there was enough out there to me.
Yeah, I would have loved a consolidation trade, something that took a couple of the Pacers rotation guys and turned them into one higher level piece. And those trades are available sometimes. Teams need to part out. They need to fill their rotation. I imagine Phoenix is going to be doing something of the sort as soon as they're able to find something suitable. That would have been cool. The Pacers have 12 rotation guys for a 10-man rotation right now.
Yes.
So the only trade that I was really interested in, other than something so lopsided, it would be like trading Luka Doncic to the Lakers.
Wait, what? That happened?
That cleared some spots in the rotation. It's killing me that Jarace Walker isn't playing, or he's only playing in the second half. It's silly.
It kind of is. Like, he started to play well right before they had to make that decision too, but I'm a Ben Shepherd player guy. Like, I'm Team Shep should be the 10th guy. So I don't know what else they can do. If you aren't a Team Shep guy, like I get the arguments. John made them with me, but outside of that, it's like, well, this is as you like to say, well, I steal this from you all the time. Good problem to have is still a problem. Like, you got to figure it out in some way. Having a depth is great. They want to play fast. Great. They have options every game. Great. Jared's still playing sometimes. This is all great until there's, he has 3 DNPs in 4 games or whatever it is. And your lottery pick that has some potential and was finally starting to play good isn't playing. And that's tough to deal with. I don't know what to say about that besides that it kind of just sucks for him, right? It just does.
Yep. I would get it more if I felt it was matchup based, but it seems so random. Let's see Shepherd in the 4th quarter guarding a power forward, and why are we doing this? I like Shepherd. He's having a really good year, and he's having a really good 3 weeks. I haven't looked at his numbers. I can't tell you if it's popping on the stat sheet or not. But I feel like he's making everything.
He's just so steadying and reliable in a way that it's like when the game is getting chaotic or like they don't know what the perfect answer is, just like Ben Shepherd, hit the button, and then he comes in the game, and then things change a little bit. Like that's a helpful player. I don't know what it will be, like what the best Ben Shepherd's gonna be, but he's good right now, I think. Well, I have nothing else for you unless you have any other Pacers related things you'd like to say, or if you have anything nice to say about Alex Len for the last time we'll have to talk about him, potentially.
I wish Alex Len the best in whatever destination he winds up in that is not the blue and gold. I'm good with that.
I can't believe I had to write a whole story on that. Continue.
Do you suspect they're going to sign Ja for the remainder of the year, or do you think it's just going to be a couple of 10 days and then they'll float an open roster spot for a while?
This 10-day fits more in line with my original prediction, which was that they would float 10 days until March 1st and then truly see what the center market is at that time. Maybe Alex Len just gets 10 days with whatever his new team is and he becomes available at that time. Maybe someone else gets bought out by March 1st. You don't know. No one knows. And then they can decide, okay, are we just converting Enrique Freeman? Are we signing Jahlil Okafor? Do we need to go elsewhere? Like Bismack Biyombo just came off the streets to the Spurs, right? Like it could be anybody in theory. So off the streets is a stretch. Bismack Biyombo is a millionaire, but you get what I'm saying. So that is kind of what I thought they would do. But Myles Turner is hurt right now, right? So that does kind of change the wait and see approach. So I think the 10-day plan makes more sense to see your options. But if they thought Alex Len was a good fit, then yeah, great, do it. I mean, we'll see what ends up happening with him. But that maybe he goes to Europe even. And who knows? There's I think there was a report about Daniel Tice going to Europe, right? We'll see. None of this is official yet or anything like that. But that is, I'm opining. I truly have no idea what he's going to do. Every time I get a Twitter notification, I'm assuming that it's going to be that, and it keeps being about the Minnesota Timberwolves ownership change, which is good. Congrats to Minnesota Timberwolves fans who may or may not be listening today. Will, thank you for the time. Where can people find you and the things you have to say about the Pacers?
You can always find me on X at Will Furr NBA, and find me on Locked On 2 or 3 times a year.
Right here. I didn't know what to put for your subhead under your name, so you're just Will Furr for the day.
That's perfect.
Tomorrow, we're talking Pacers-Knicks. Did Jahlil Okafor play? Did Myles Turner play? Did the Pacers actually look like the Pacers again and make some shots or not? We'll check out all that tomorrow. Thank you guys for listening. See you very soon.